So, I am quitting resistance training and I figured I should talk about it. Hi, welcome. If you've been following me for a while, you might be like, Marissa, what? Like, who is MissFitAndNerdy if she does not lift heavy? I don't know. In the last few weeks, months, I have been much more intentionally shifting away from resistance training. And I want to clarify, I'm not like completely quitting resistance training and I'll never pick up another weight again. I am just shifting towards a more robust vocabulary of movement and placing much less emphasis on resistance training in my current fitness journey. So to have this discussion, I think we should start at the beginning. I started lifting in 2016 when I took a PE class in college that taught us how to lift weights, and I immediately fell in love with it. And falling in love with lifting made me fall in love with fitness and with health. And at the time, lifting felt so good. Like, it gave me so much energy, so much strength, so much confidence. It made me feel very like centered and grounded while I was training. It was very meditative for me, and it also really helped, because I was in college at the time, it really helped kind of relieve stress from all of the studying and finals and scary college things, you know, stress. So lifting essentially was the foundation of my fitness journey. Like, everything that I learned and expanded from came from this love of resistance training and wanting to like get better at resistance training. Like, I started lifting, immediately started like binge listening to MINDPUMP and like learning everything I could about like that side of things. Started learning more about macros to support my training. From there, started learning about more nutrition, etc., etc., and all kind of just built up from there. And it became a very integral part of my identity. Like, I was that person in the gym that was like lifting heavy 5 days a week because I wanted to, like because it felt good, not because that's necessarily what I felt like I had to do or felt obligated in any way, shape, or form to do that, but like that's just what I wanted to do, what felt really good for me. But because that was such a foundational, integral part of my health and fitness journey, it became very strongly tied to my personal identity, not just MissFitAndNerdy online, but like who I was as a person. Like, I was the girl who's in the gym 5 days a week lifting heavy. And for a few years, that was great. I was thriving, happy, healthy, loved it, fantastic. But then, as life does, there were some huge shifts that happened to me, because of me, at me, etc. I started going through topical steroid withdrawal. For those of you who don't know, I was using topical steroids consistently for like, I don't know, 8 or so years to help with my skin, but what that did is essentially I was dosing myself with cortisol for years. And so when I stopped using them, my body went through a whole thing. I have lots of videos about topical steroid withdrawal. If you just search that on my channel, you'll see my whole journey. But it was a whole shift because that was all my body knew, was having that supplemental cortisol in it. And so in going through the withdrawal, I essentially became a new person in at least like biochemically. And that started in 2019, and then 2020 happened. We had a global pandemic. That was a wee bit stressful. Also during that time, like a couple months into the pandemic, I came off of hormonal birth control. So that was another thing that had a huge shift in my body biochemically. Hormones were re-regulating, changing, shifting, etc. And so who I was when I started lifting, both on topical steroids and on hormonal birth control, I am not the same human. And then also, not long after that, I ended up in a relationship and then another relationship, both of which were, let's just say, not serving me, causing me consistent underlying levels of anxiety. And so my body was in like a constant fight or flight state. So what this means is essentially when I started lifting, my body was just in a very different place. And in the last few years, it's gone through a lot of transition, a lot of healing, and also a lot of stress. And so during those few years of transition, mentally, I was still in that first place of like, I'm the girl that lifts heavy 5 days a week, and I love it, and I thrive on it. But I was slowly becoming kind of less and less consistent with lifting heavy. Like I would go through periods of being consistent, but then I would go through periods of taking some time off or shifting my focus with my training or just like doing other things. And then I'd get consistent with lifting again, and then something would happen and I would maybe transition to like other types of working out or whatever. And as a whole, I just had less motivation to lift when I was in that transitional phase, but also my body was craving lifting less. Like I wasn't thriving on it as much as before, but in my head, I kind of just felt like I was just being mentally weaker. Like that was kind of, I didn't really think deeper about it. I was just like, okay, like I used to be able to do this, I should be able to do this now. Like I used to thrive on it, I should thrive on it now. Again, should have listened to my own advice, because I always say, you know, what worked for you 5 years ago might not work for you now. But when you're in that transition, it can be hard to see that you are in that transition. And so I kind of just blamed myself for not being consistent with it. I was very much like in my head and not in my body. And so now, as I've told you guys, I am moving into phase 3 of Marissa's fitness journey, which is all about really focusing on living in alignment. Not just when it comes to like listening to my body for nutrition, but also listening to my body for exercise and movement. Also listening to my body for like all of the other decisions that I make in life beyond things that you would normally think are like health and fitnessy. So like who I'm connecting to in life, whether or not I want to go to a social obligation or outing, or I would actually feel more nourished staying at home. Tuning into myself, learning that I have access to the ability to say no to things. Isn't that a miracle? But in this new transition, I have started asking myself those questions more about movement and really asking myself like, what feels good? What does my body want? What does it crave? And I've realized that with where my body is now, which might not even be the case in a month or a year or 3 years, who knows? I will probably continue to transition and listen to my body. But like right now, lifting heavy does not feel as good or as energizing as it used to. And that's not to say that it feels bad right now or that it feels like something that I really shouldn't be doing. It's just that it doesn't feel like a type of movement that is going to help my body thrive right now. And it's really hard to explain what that feeling kind of feels like how I know that my body's not craving it. But I think, you know, if you guys have been following me for a while, you will know that I love experimenting on myself when it comes to health and fitnessy things. Like I have tried so many different diets, a lot of different protocols, and I just think it's fun, right? To like test different things on myself and see how my body responds. And I just love that data. Like I am a nerd. I love experimenting and collecting data. And I think that time that I've spent doing that has been invaluable, because yes, I've collected a lot of data that's tangible that I understand. Like I've learned that as a whole, on average, my body thrives a lot more on like a higher-ish fat diet rather than a higher-ish carb diet. I have reverse dieted. I have done prolonged fasts. Like I've done so many different things that have taught me so much about my body. And I think there's also a lot of data that my body has collected that my brain just can't quite quantify. I know when it comes to intuitive eating, like I know if my body is craving more protein, more fat, or more complex carbs. Like it's just like a feeling that I have. I can even tell if my body, you know, if I'm craving protein, if my body wants protein from like steak or chicken or fish. And I think that's just from the years of like tracking and observing. And my body just knows that like when it feels a certain way, when maybe it's deprived in certain nutrients, like my body can sense that. And in ways that I can't really articulate, it tells me what I need to eat accordingly. And what I've very recently realized is that it's kind of the same for movement. Like I can tell if I sit here and think like, should I go lift? Like I could probably get away with like a good lifting session right now. Like it'd probably feel okay. But what my body really wants, like what would nourish it the most, what would give it the most energy is like a 25-minute yoga flowy session and maybe some like lightweight spinal articulation. Like what sounds really good for my body right now is some very light kettlebell weighted windmills. So maybe I should do that after I finish filming this video. But like there's just something in my body that senses like this is the amount of energy that I have, this is the type of movement that would make my body feel the best, and so my brain is telling me that. And the realization that I recently came to is that it's been a long time since my body has genuinely craved heavy resistance training. And for so long I was stuck in the mindset of like, that is what I do, and if I'm not lifting heavy, like what's really the point? And I've given, like, I obviously haven't forced myself to continue lifting heavy. Like I said, I've been kind of inconsistent. I've been dabbling in other stuff. I've listened to my body, but not really as consciously as I would have liked. I think I had really solidly put myself in that like resistance training girly box, and I was having a really hard time mentally breaking out of it and really just like building my own box when it came to movement. And so now that is my goal, is to kind of like build my own movement box, or build a lot of other boxes and just keep my hands in all the boxes. And so that is the shift that I'm at right now, is like recognizing that lifting heavy is not serving me. It's not what my body wants right now. That's not, again, that's not to say like I won't do it at all ever again. It's not to say that I don't recommend it, because I do think most people really should be actively resistance training. And I think if I didn't have the amount of muscle that I currently have, I might still be pushing myself to resistance train a little bit more, just for overall health optimization. But like, I have a pretty decent amount of muscle on my body, at least according to my DEXA scans. And as long as I don't like start losing a ton of muscle, like I'm gonna be okay. But what I can tell my body is craving now is mobility. I feel really called to more like body weight type of exercises, like body weight mobility, kind of stretching based tension kind of exercises. And it feels right in my brain and my body to want to focus on fluidity of movement and efficiency of movement. Movement that incorporates not just like activating my muscles, but also moving my fascia and articulating my spine and my joints in ways that I wasn't really doing when I was resistance training. Because like resistance training, so many benefits. Please keep resistance training. Please like do all the resistance training, especially if you love it and your body's thriving on it. If you had to pick one modality of exercise for the rest of your life, that might be one of the best ones. That said, it has some deficits, mainly being how like uniplanar it is. Like almost all exercises, when you are doing like standard regular resistance training, happen in one plane. And right now, my body just wants to move through multiple planes at a time. So modalities that my body is feeling more called to right now include things like animal flow and other just kind of like functional flowy exercises like that. So not necessarily only using the like select animal flow exercises, but doing stuff like similar and in that vein. Feeling more called to yoga, which 10 years ago, I would have laughed in your face if you had told me one day I would want to do yoga. That was the first PE class that I took in college. We had a PE requirement in college, and I despised it. I hated every moment of that class. I hated yoga so much. My body did not seem to like it very much. Or at that time, I was definitely much less in tune with my body. It was just hard, probably because I have always been relatively not flexible. So yoga's difficult for me. I also really want to incorporate some light kettlebell work. Ooh, check this out. I found this cool kettlebell at Marshall's the other day for like $5, and I spray painted it gold, so now it's really pretty. It's like 3 pounds, 5 pounds, 5 pounds. So I can just do fun like mobility drills sitting here on the floor while I do my floor work. I don't know what I'm doing right now. I want to do more stuff that's like stability and stabilization focused, so stuff that's really going to kind of just challenge my body's ability to stabilize through different ranges of motion in space, I guess. And then I do still want to incorporate some lifting. So like what I've done in the last couple weeks has been mostly just doing like the type of movements that I've described, and then incorporating like 1 or 2 lifts into that. But like it's been light with dumbbells. I haven't been doing anything super heavy. So like the other day I spent like 25 minutes like flowing around doing the fun movementy kind of stuff, and then in the last 5 minutes I think I did like 2 sets of 40-pound Romanian deadlifts and then 2 sets of single leg hip thrusts, and then that was the end of the workout. So I'm certainly not writing off weights entirely. It's just that I don't think is going to be the central focus of any of my workouts for the foreseeable future, until my body starts shifting again and I will just listen to it. And then lastly, we do have the running goal. I haven't run in a while. The goal is to be able to run 10 miles. I've made it to 4. We're getting there. Honestly, not sure how my body feels about running right now. It definitely doesn't feel bad, but it is still like specifically a goal of mine. And so that is something that I still want to actively incorporate into my exercise routine. Even if it's not something that my body itself is specifically craving, it is still something that is like aligned with what I want to do and my personal goals for myself. Like there's a much stronger yes in my body towards running than a no in my body. So that's kind of where I'm at with my training right now. And I wanted to like sit down and talk about it because I think it's just an important thing to talk about, like listening to your body when it comes to exercise and not letting yourself put yourself in a box and instead allowing yourself to be fluid and flexible. I do think it's important to note that if you have specific goals when it comes to your aesthetics or, you know, a certain strength goal, or you want to hit like a certain number of push-ups, like if you have a exercise related goal, then your training itself might not be able to be as day-to-day intuitive. It should ideally still be aligned because hopefully those goals that you have are also in alignment with like overall what you want for yourself, but it won't necessarily feel as good day-to-day within the movement. Big example would be if you want to lose body fat, and let's just for the sake of argument say that it's coming from a very healthy place. You know, you just want to lose some body fat because you are going to feel healthier, you're going to move better, etc. And so that goal itself feels in alignment. You need to train in alignment with that goal to get to that goal. And so that would mean doing more resistance training, not like doing a ton of cardio or only doing yoga. You know, you're going to want to actively incorporate resistance training in there, even if it's not necessarily the movement that feels most nourishing for your body on any given day. Likewise, if you wanted to be able to run faster, you're gonna have to run. You can't just only resistance train and expect to become a faster runner. So it really is about aligning your movement practice with everything else, with your goals, with whatever else needs to be aligned, and then going from there. So like for me personally, my main goal with health and fitness right now is just to get to the healthiest place possible. I've noticed some really positive shifts in my skin since I have started kind of like down this track of focusing on alignment. And so my goal is to just kind of like keep with that and give my body what it seems to be craving to help kind of nourish that path. And so that's why I'm really leaning into just listening to my body, giving it what it's craving when it comes to exercise, rather than implementing any like specific program or protocol or being more rigid in my programming itself. Because like I'm not working towards an exercise goal right now, I'm working towards an overall health goal and like feeling goal. So those are my thoughts. I hope this was interesting. I hope it maybe inspired some of you to explore your movement practice a little bit. Would love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns in the comments below. I personally think this is a really interesting discussion. I wish I had heard someone else say all of this a couple years ago. And so I would love to keep this conversation going. If you guys want more content on it, again, leave me any questions that you have. If you liked the video, please give a big thumbs up. It really does support me and my channel. I really genuinely appreciate it. Please share this video with your friends, your family, your workout buddies. If you want to see more content from me all about health and fitness, you can check it out over here. To see future videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I post a video, and I will see you very soon. Bye.